I never thought I would find myself in a position like this, but here I am, sharing my story of betrayal and the path I took after discovering my wife's infidelity. My name is Mark, and I was married to Jessica for 5 years before everything unraveled. We had always shared a passion for environmental activism, spending weekends protesting for climate justice or volunteering with local green organizations. We were a power couple in the eyes of our friends, seen as a model of love and purpose working toward a better world. But beneath that surface, cracks had started to form. The initial signs of trouble were subtle, almost imperceptible at first. Jessica, who used to be so engaged and present, began withdrawing. She spent more nights away from home, claiming it was for late meetings or urgent project work. I brushed off my suspicions, attributing her behavior to the demands of our shared activism. After all, who wouldn't want to save the planet? But as months passed, those late nights became an unsettling norm. I remember the evening everything changed. I came home early from a community event, excited to surprise her with dinner. As I walked into our apartment, the first thing that struck me was the silence. Normally, I would hear her voice or some music playing, but instead, there was an eerie stillness. I called out her name, expecting her to respond from the bedroom or the kitchen. When I didn't get a reply, a knot formed in my stomach. It was then that I noticed her phone lying on the kitchen counter, screen lit up. My curiosity got the better of me and I picked it up. I shouldn't have, but I did. I scrolled through her messages, half expecting to find nothing more than mundane discussions about our upcoming environmental summit. But what I found sent my heart racing. There were texts exchanged between her and a guy named Ethan, someone I recognized from our activist group. The messages were flirty, filled with emojis and inside jokes that made my skin crawl. The final message I read made it clear. They were meeting for drinks that night. I felt my heart drop. My mind raced with disbelief and anger. How could she do this to me? I put the phone down, my hands shaking. Time seemed to blur as I replayed the last few months. In my head, connecting the dots that I had chosen to ignore. I felt like a fool, realizing I had been so blind. When Jessica finally came home, I was still in shock. I confronted her immediately, my voice shaky but filled with a cold edge of accusation. "Who is Ethan?" I demanded. The look of surprise on her face was almost comical, but the anger in my chest overshadowed any humor. She tried to brush it off at first, claiming they were just friends working on climate awareness strategies. I could see the gears turning in her head, searching for an excuse that would deflect the blame. I pressed her harder, calling her out on the late nights and the evasive behavior. Her responses only fueled my anger more. She laughed it off, insisting I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid. It was like a punch to the gut. I felt my emotions swinging wildly from rage to despair as she continued to deny the truth right in front of me. Finally, I laid it all out, showing her the texts that made it clear she was lying. The color drained from her face, but even. Then she struggled to find her footing, giving half-hearted apologies mixed with more excuses. "You don't understand, Mark. It's not what you think. I just got caught up in the moment," she said, her voice rising in panic. In that moment, I realized how deep her betrayal cut. I had always believed in our shared mission and the pure intentions behind our activism, but here was someone I thought I knew completely, betraying my trust with someone I had considered a friend. My heart was racing and I felt anger morphing into sadness. I wanted to scream, cry, and throw things, but instead I stood there feeling hollow. It was the first time I truly grasped that everything had changed. I had a choice to make, to fight for the marriage or set myself free from a partnership built on lies. As I sat there, lost in thought, I knew deep down that my future would be different. I would not let this betrayal define me. The question was how to move forward from here. The days following the confrontation were a blur of emotions. I couldn't escape my thoughts about Jessica and the betrayal that felt like a dagger to the heart. She apologized repeatedly, but the words felt empty. I often found myself staring out the window, replaying our shared memories while questioning everything we had built together. The idealistic couple who championed for the environment now seemed like a distant dream. Jessica tried to salvage what remained of our relationship. She would often come to me with tears in her eyes, claiming that she had made a mistake, that it was just a fleeting moment of weakness. But I struggled to trust her words. Every time she spoke, I wondered what else she could be hiding. The vibrant conversations that used to flow between us were replaced by awkward silences and strained exchanges, as if we were both tiptoeing around an elephant in the room. One afternoon, I decided to confront the reality of our situation. I took a long walk to clear my head, trying to figure out what I wanted moving forward. I wandered through the park where we had spent countless afternoons, laughing and planning our future. It felt surreal to be there alone, grappling with the memories of happier times while feeling the heavy weight of betrayal on my shoulders. On my way back home, I spotted Ethan sitting at a cafe with a group of friends from our activist circle. My heart sank when I saw him laughing, carefree, completely oblivious to the storm brewing in my life. I stood there, frozen, watching him through the glass window. It wasn't just the sight of him that ignited the fire in my chest. It was the realization that I could no longer be passive. Anger bubbled up, fueled by feelings of inadequacy and humiliation. That night, Jessica tried to initiate a heart-to-heart conversation, wanting to make amends. I listened to her talk about how much she wanted to fix things, but all I could think about was the betrayal. I felt a surge of resentment and bitterness as I realized I no longer recognized the woman sitting across from me. "How can you expect me to trust you again?" I asked her, my voice shaky but firm. "You've lied to me, and you've betrayed everything we stood for." She tried to argue that it was a mistake, that she loved me, but the words fell flat. In that moment, I realized I was no longer the man who was willing to overlook her flaws for the sake of love. I was hurt, angry, and most importantly, I was ready to take action for my own well-being. The next day, I met with a close friend, Jake, who had always been my confidant. I laid everything bare, describing the pain and confusion I felt. I talked about my plans to confront Jessica and the need to make a decision that would change everything. Jake listened intently, offering support and perspective. "Mark, you deserve someone who respects you and values honesty. If she can cheat on you now, what's to stop her from doing it again?" His words resonated with me. I realized that I needed to reclaim my life, and I needed to find clarity in the chaos that surrounded me. I decided that I would no longer let this situation control me. I would take matters into my own hands. In the following days, I began to formulate a plan for my future. I wanted to take the pain I felt and turn it into something meaningful. I had always been passionate about our environmental work, but now there was a new layer of motivation. I envisioned founding an environmental justice firm that demanded honesty in relationships, not just in partnerships for activism, but in all aspects of life. I wanted to advocate for personal ethics that aligned with our mission for environmental sustainability. As I brainstormed ideas, I felt a sense of empowerment. I would channel my anger and sadness into a purpose that could potentially help others who found themselves in similar situations. It became clear. Sustainability began with personal ethics, and I was determined to lead by example. But I still had to face Jessica. I had to let her know that I was no longer willing to accept betrayal and that I was ready to move forward, not just in my career but in my life. I had to confront her again, this time with a clarity and purpose that would set the tone for the next chapter of my life. It wasn't going to be easy, but I felt ready. I was resolved to reclaim my narrative and ensure that honesty and integrity became the foundation of my future. It was time to take a stand. The day I decided to confront Jessica again was filled with a mixture of dread and resolve. My heart raced as I prepared for the conversation, knowing it would be pivotal in determining the course of my life. I wanted to make it clear that I was no longer the man who would sit idly by, accepting her lies and excuses. I was ready to reclaim my identity and set boundaries that would not be crossed. When I got home that evening, I found Jessica curled up on the couch, a blanket wrapped around her. She looked up at me with those big, expressive eyes, and for a moment I felt a flicker of the love that had once been there. But then reality crashed back in, reminding me of her betrayal. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts before I spoke. "Jessica, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. There was a heaviness in the air, and I could tell she sensed the gravity of the moment. She nodded, sitting up straighter, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. "I know things have been rough between us," she began, but I cut her off, unwilling to let her sugarcoat the situation any longer. "I'm not here to rehash past mistakes or listen to more excuses," I said, my tone sharper than I intended. "What I want to discuss is our future, or rather my future." Her brow furrowed, and I could see the anxiety creep into her features. "Mark, please, let me finish," I interrupted, holding up my hand to stop her. I took another breath, feeling a surge of confidence. "You've hurt me deeply, Jessica. You betrayed our relationship, and I can't just forgive and forget. The trust is gone, and I don't think it can be rebuilt." She opened her mouth to speak, but I pressed on. "I've given this a lot of thought. I want a relationship built on honesty and mutual respect, and right now I don't feel like I can have that with you. I've decided I need to move on." Her eyes widened, a mix of shock and desperation. "Mark, you can't be serious. I love you. I made a mistake, and I've been trying to show you that I can change." "I know you say that," I shot back, my frustration bubbling up again. "But how can I believe you? You cheated with Ethan, someone I considered a friend. Your actions have consequences, and I'm no longer willing to be part of this toxic situation." Tears began to stream down her face, and for a moment I felt a pang of guilt. But I had to remind myself that I was doing this for my own well-being. I couldn't let her emotional manipulation sway me. I took a step back, giving myself space to breathe, to gather my thoughts. "Mark, please," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I'll do anything to fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work on it together. I don't want to lose you." Her desperation only served to strengthen my resolve. "Jessica, I've made my decision. I need to put myself first for once. I'm going to focus on building my own life and moving forward. This betrayal has opened my eyes to what I truly want." As I spoke, I felt a heavy weight lift off my shoulders. Despite the intense emotions swirling around, I felt clarity. I was ready to embrace the new path I had envisioned, one built on integrity and honesty, not just in my personal life, but also within my professional ambitions. Jessica sat in silence, her emotions shifting from desperation to resignation. I could see the acceptance dawning on her face, and as painful as it was, I knew it was the right decision. I had to protect myself, my heart, and my future. After I finished speaking, I turned to leave the room, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. But just before walking out, I paused, glancing back at her. "I hope you find a way to be honest with yourself moving forward, Jessica. It's essential, not just for relationships, but for your own personal growth." With that, I walked out of the room, leaving behind the remnants of a relationship that had once meant everything to me. I felt a bittersweet pain in my chest, but I also felt free for the first time since discovering her betrayal. It was time to focus on my new venture, an environmental justice firm that would center around honesty and integrity. I spent the next few days drafting a business plan and reaching out to potential partners. I wanted to create something meaningful that could advocate for both environmental sustainability and personal ethics. The idea was taking shape, and with each passing moment, I felt more empowered. I was no longer defined by my past. I was forging a new identity. But the emotional aftermath of the confrontation still lingered. I had to acknowledge the hurt and sadness that came with the end of my marriage. As I worked through my feelings, I began to realize that this journey was about more than just revenge or starting anew. It was about healing and understanding what I wanted from my life and relationships moving forward. I was determined not to let this experience embitter me. Instead, I would channel it into something positive, not just for myself, but for others who might find themselves in similar situations. I wanted my firm to be a beacon of hope, advocating for honesty in all aspects of life. I wanted to show others that personal integrity was the key to sustainability, not just for the planet, but for our hearts and relationships as well. The weeks following my confrontation with Jessica were a whirlwind of change. I dove headfirst into building my environmental justice firm, pouring all my energy into crafting a mission statement that embodied the values I wanted to promote. I knew that I wanted to create a platform where honesty and transparency would be the cornerstones of every partnership and initiative. I envisioned workshops, community projects, and campaigns that would not only draw attention to environmental issues, but also encourage individuals to reflect on their personal ethics in relationships. I spent countless hours in coffee shops, drafting plans, reaching out to potential collaborators, and networking with other activists. It was invigorating to focus on something I was passionate about, something that felt rewarding and meaningful. I found myself reconnecting with friends and colleagues in the activist community, realizing just how much support I had around me. One evening, while attending a local environmental fundraiser, I bumped into Sarah, a fellow activist and a good friend. She had always been supportive of my work, and her genuine nature made it easy to confide in her. After catching up on the latest initiatives, I decided to share the news about my firm. "I'm really excited about this new venture, Sarah," I said over the sound of clinking glasses and laughter around us. "It feels like a way to turn all the pain I've been through into something positive." She smiled, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "That's amazing, Mark. You've always been passionate about sustainability, and I think this is the perfect direction for you. It's like you're taking back your power." Her words resonated deeply. I realized that, rather than seeking revenge on Jessica or wallowing in resentment, I was constructing a new narrative for my life. I was no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was a man on a mission. As we continued talking, Sarah's enthusiasm sparked an idea in my mind. I could use this venture not only to advocate for environmental justice, but also to create a community where people could share their own experiences and learn from one another. I began envisioning workshops where individuals could discuss the importance of honesty in relationships, emphasizing that personal integrity was critical for both environmental sustainability and healthy partnerships. The idea took root, and I decided to plan an inaugural event for the firm, a launch party that would also serve as a community gathering focused on honesty and ethics in relationships. I wanted to create a space where people could openly discuss their struggles and triumphs, highlighting the importance of integrity in both personal and environmental activism. As I planned the event, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I reached out to local advocates and experts, inviting them to speak and share their insights. I also started promoting the event on social media, crafting messages that resonated with others who might have faced similar heartbreak or challenges. But even as I focused on my firm, I still had moments when the weight of my past felt heavy. There were nights when I would lie awake, grappling with the emotions tied to my marriage. The memories of Jessica and the love we once shared would creep in, often leaving me feeling vulnerable and uncertain. I reminded myself that healing was not linear, and it was okay to feel a mix of emotions as I navigated this transition. As the date of the launch party approached, excitement began to replace the lingering sadness. I spent hours setting up the venue, ensuring everything was perfect. I wanted this event to be a celebration of new beginnings, not just for me but for everyone who attended. I wanted to foster a sense of hope, showing that it was possible to rebuild and move forward with integrity. The night of the event arrived, and I stood at the entrance of the venue, filled with anticipation. The room was buzzing with energy as people mingled, sharing stories and ideas. I felt a sense of belonging, a community of individuals who were all passionate about creating a better world. When it was time for me to speak, I took a deep breath and stepped onto the small stage. I scanned the audience, seeing familiar faces alongside new ones, and I felt a swell of gratitude. This was more than just a launch. It was a testament to resilience and the power of honesty. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice steady. "This journey has not been easy for me, but I believe that through our shared experiences, we can cultivate a community based on integrity and honesty. Sustainability doesn't just begin with how we treat the environment, it starts with how we treat each other." As I spoke, I saw nods of agreement and understanding among the crowd. I shared my vision for the firm, emphasizing the importance of personal ethics in fostering healthy relationships, both with others and with the planet. I wanted to inspire everyone in the room to reflect on their own lives and the relationships they held dear. After my speech, I opened the floor for discussions. People began sharing their stories, their struggles, and their journeys toward healing. It was a powerful moment. I felt the collective weight of vulnerability and honesty fill the room. I realized that this was what I had been missing: connection, understanding, and the opportunity to help others through their own challenges. As the night wore on, I found myself surrounded by supportive individuals who genuinely cared about the mission I was building. I felt a renewed sense of hope, knowing that I could turn my pain into purpose. I was no longer defined by my past. I was forging a new path, one that would inspire others to embrace honesty and integrity in their relationships. But even as I celebrated this victory, I knew I had more to learn about myself and the importance of moving forward with authenticity. The road ahead would not be easy, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay in my path. I was determined to build a future grounded in honesty, both in my personal life and in the work I was passionate about. The launch party was a resounding success, and the energy in the room felt electric. People lingered, exchanging contact information and promising to collaborate on future initiatives. As I moved through the crowd, soaking in the camaraderie and enthusiasm, I felt a sense of belonging that I hadn't experienced in a long time. It was liberating to be surrounded by individuals who shared my passion for the environment and the principles of honesty and integrity. In the weeks that followed, my firm gained traction. I started organizing workshops focused not only on environmental justice, but also on the importance of personal integrity in relationships. The response from the community was overwhelming. People reached out, eager to share their stories and participate in discussions that explored the intersection of personal ethics and activism. I felt a renewed sense of purpose, energized by the connections I was fostering. One workshop in particular stood out to me. It was designed as a safe space for individuals to share their experiences with dishonesty in relationships, including infidelity. I was nervous about how it would be received, but I knew it was a crucial topic to address. On the day of the workshop, I set the tone by sharing my own story. I spoke about the heartbreak of betrayal and how it had inspired me to create a platform for honest dialogue. I emphasized that we all make mistakes, but it's our responsibility to learn from them and build better lives moving forward. To my surprise, the attendees opened up in ways I hadn't anticipated. One woman shared her experience of being cheated on and how it had impacted her self-esteem and trust in relationships. A man spoke about the guilt he felt after having an affair and how it had torn his family apart. Each story was raw and vulnerable, and as they shared, I could see a sense of catharsis washing over them. I facilitated the discussion, guiding it towards healing and growth. It was incredible to witness strangers supporting one another, offering advice and encouragement. I realized that this was exactly what I wanted to create: a community that embraced honesty and fostered healing through shared experiences. As the workshop came to a close, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. This wasn't just about my journey. It was about helping others reclaim their narratives and learn to prioritize integrity in their lives. I didn't just want to advocate for environmental justice. I wanted to help shape a culture of honesty that could transform personal relationships. But amidst this newfound purpose, I still struggled with the emotional aftermath of my marriage. There were moments when the memories of Jessica would haunt me. I'd catch myself questioning if I had made the right decision to end things. Would things have changed if I had given her another chance? These thoughts would creep in, particularly during the quieter moments of the day. I would often find myself sitting alone in my apartment, the silence echoing around me. It was during one of those reflective evenings that I realized I needed to confront not just my feelings about Jessica, but also my feelings about myself. I decided to seek therapy, recognizing that I had a lot to unpack. It was time to explore the emotions I had been suppressing: the anger, the sadness, and the moments of self-doubt. I wanted to understand how the betrayal had affected my self-worth and my ability to trust moving forward. In counseling, I learned valuable tools for processing my feelings. My therapist encouraged me to express my emotions rather than bottle them up, and I began journaling to clarify my thoughts. I found that writing about my experiences helped me gain perspective, allowing me to reflect on what I truly wanted in life and relationships. During this time, I also began exploring the concept of forgiveness, not just for Jessica, but for myself as well. It was a difficult journey, but I realized that forgiveness didn't mean absolving her of her actions. It meant releasing the hold that anger and resentment had on me. I needed to let go of the weight I had been carrying and find peace within myself. With each therapy session, I felt a little lighter. I began to understand that healing takes time and that it was okay to feel a mix of emotions. I learned to embrace my vulnerability and recognize that it was a strength, not a weakness. As I continued to build my firm and foster community discussions, I found a deeper sense of fulfillment. I was no longer just a man trying to escape the shadows of betrayal. I was a man on a mission to advocate for honesty, integrity, and a sustainable future. My experiences had reshaped my understanding of relationships, and I was eager to help others navigate their own journeys. I wanted to be a voice for those who had felt the sting of betrayal, offering them hope and a roadmap for rebuilding their lives. I knew that the path ahead would have its challenges, but I was ready to face them head-on. With each workshop, each conversation, and each connection I made, I felt like I was reclaiming my narrative. I was no longer defined by my past. I was forging a new path, one that aligned with my values and aspirations. As I stepped into this new chapter of my life, I felt empowered and hopeful for what lay ahead. As I continued to grow my environmental justice firm, I found myself immersed in a world where I could translate my personal experiences into meaningful action. The workshops and community discussions had created a ripple effect, encouraging people to not only engage with environmental issues, but also examine their relationships and personal ethics. It was inspiring to witness individuals taking ownership of their stories, confronting their own struggles, and striving to build healthier connections with themselves and others. Months had passed since the launch party, and I felt a shift within me. The initial sting of betrayal had dulled, transforming into a sense of understanding and acceptance. I was no longer just a victim of my circumstances. I had evolved into someone who used those experiences as fuel for positive change. I was becoming a source of support for others, and it felt empowering. One evening, as I was organizing materials for an upcoming workshop, I received a text from Jessica. My heart raced at the sight of her name on my screen. It was the first time she had reached out since our confrontation. I hesitated before opening the message, unsure of what to expect. "Hey Mark, I hope you're doing well. I've been thinking about everything that happened between us. I just wanted to say I'm truly sorry for the pain I caused you. I wish you all the best," it read. A mix of emotions surged within me, anger, sadness, and even a hint of nostalgia. I took a moment to process her words. Part of me longed to respond with bitterness, to remind her of the hurt she had caused, but I paused and reflected. In therapy, I had learned that holding on to anger only weighed me down. I didn't want to carry that burden anymore, so I typed out a response, keeping it simple yet honest. "Thank you for your message, Jessica. I appreciate your apology. I wish you well too." Once I hit send, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was a small step towards closure for both of us. I realized that I didn't need her validation to move forward. I had already begun the journey of healing. With each passing day, I became more dedicated to my mission of advocating for honesty and integrity. I organized community cleanup events, sustainability workshops, and even began collaborating with local schools to educate the next generation about environmental issues and the value of personal ethics. I felt like I was building something that mattered, not just to me, but to the community around me. One afternoon, while preparing for a workshop focused on cultivating healthy relationships, I received an unexpected call from Sarah. She had been a constant supporter throughout my journey, and her enthusiasm always lifted my spirits. "Mark, I have an idea I think you'll love," she said excitedly. "What?" "If we created a podcast series that tackles the intertwining themes of environmentalism and personal relationships. We could interview experts, activists, and everyday people about their experiences and how they relate to honesty and sustainability." Her idea sparked something within me. It was a perfect way to reach a broader audience and share the important lessons I had learned. I agreed to collaborate with her, and soon we were brainstorming episode themes and potential guests. As we worked together, I found myself feeling more inspired than ever. The podcast became a creative outlet where I could share my journey and the insights I had gained, while also amplifying the voices of others who had their own stories to tell. The project took off, and the response was overwhelming. Listeners reached out with heartfelt messages, sharing their own experiences and expressing gratitude for the conversations we were fostering. It became clear that I was not alone in my struggles, and that so many others had faced their own issues with honesty and integrity in relationships. Through this journey, I learned that healing is an ongoing process, one that evolves over time. My experiences had taught me invaluable lessons about love, trust, and the strength it takes to face one's vulnerabilities. I had transformed my pain into purpose, and that was something I could be proud of. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that the betrayal I once viewed as a devastating blow had ultimately served as a catalyst for growth and transformation. It pushed me to confront my values, reclaim my identity, and embrace a new path filled with purpose. I was determined to continue advocating for honesty and integrity, not just within myself but in the broader community. As I looked toward the future, I felt hopeful. I had built a firm that resonated with my values, fostered meaningful connections, and promoted a culture of honesty. I was no longer defined by my past. I was creating a life that aligned with my principles. In the end, I learned that true sustainability begins not only with caring for the planet, but also with nurturing our relationships with honesty and integrity. This was the legacy I wanted to build, one that would inspire others to embrace their stories, cultivate personal ethics, and advocate for a better world. I was ready for whatever lay ahead, knowing that I had the strength to face it all.